If the flesh came into being because of spirit, it is a wonder. But if spirit came into being because of the body, it is a wonder of wonders. Jesus. The words are ancient, but the mystery they point to is older still, a riddle whispered across centuries, hinting that the greatest miracle is not in the heavens, but in us. How could the infinite clothe itself in fragile skin? How could something born of light choose to dwell inside breath, bone, and memory? What is it about the human soul that astonished even Jesus, enough to call it the wonder of wonders? Tonight, we enter that mystery, not through doctrine, not through creed, but through a gospel that speaks in riddles, mirrors, and quiet revelations. A gospel that asks you not to believe, but to see. The Gospel of Thomas is not a storybook. It is a doorway, a collection of sayings designed to awaken something older than thought. The inner light the text insists has been with you since the beginning. Light inside clay, eternity inside a heartbeat, the divine wearing the temporary as a garment. This is the wonder Thomas points toward, a secret hidden in plain sight, waiting for the one who can look with fresh eyes. And as we begin this journey, a small note for your listening comfort. All ads have been placed within the first 20 minutes, so the rest of this audiobook will flow without interruption, a single quiet passage into the heart of the text. Listen gently. Let the words wash over you like a dream half remembered. Let the silences speak as loudly as the sayings, for this is not an argument. It is an unveiling. Somewhere in these ancient lines, the teacher hints that the kingdom is not above or below, but spread out upon the earth, unseen by those who are asleep. But you are here to listen, to turn inward, to rediscover the light that existence placed inside your ribs. So let us begin. Let us walk slowly into the mystery, into the riddles, into the wonder that astonished even Jesus, the wonder of wonders, the divine hidden within the human. This is the Gospel of Thomas. Chapter 1. The Book of Hidden Sayings. In the beginning, there was silence, a silence that stretched across centuries, beneath stone, beneath sand, beneath the noise of empires and sermons. And in that silence, a voice waited. It is said that wisdom never dies. It only buries itself until the world is ready again. The Gospel of Thomas is that buried voice, a collection of sayings, stripped of miracle, stripped of narrative, left only with the echo of a man who once said, "He who finds the interpretation of these words will not taste death." What kind of words could promise that? Not commandments, not creeds, but riddles. A mirror for the soul. And so this journey begins, not in belief, but in listening. Listening to what has waited. In 1945, near a small Egyptian village called Nag Hammadi, a farmer struck something with his shovel. Not stone, but clay. Inside the jar he unearthed lay 12 leather-bound codices, brittle and silent, written in Coptic. Among them, scholars found this text: the Gospel according to Thomas. Not a gospel of story or cross or resurrection, but of sayings. 114 fragments of teaching. Some sound like the Jesus we think we know, others like whispers from another world. For centuries this book was hidden, called heresy, buried by fear, preserved by accident. And yet, when it surfaced, it did not bring doctrine. It brought a question. What if the kingdom of God was never lost, only unseen? Thomas is unlike Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. There is no manger, no miracle, no crucifixion. It is Jesus without the plot, pure consciousness, speaking through riddles. Every saying begins with, "Jesus said," as though each is a doorway unto itself. No explanations, no transitions, only the rhythm of mystery. It feels less like reading scripture, more like overhearing eternity. Each line hints that truth cannot be told. It must be recognized. This is not religion. This is recognition. And in this stripped form, Jesus appears not as Savior, but as teacher of remembrance, the one who points inward and says, "The kingdom is within you, and it is outside you." To read Thomas is to be spoken to directly, not as follower, but as equal in potential. The opening line is an initiation. Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. This is not promise of escape. It is a challenge. The death Thomas speaks of is ignorance, forgetting who you are. Interpretation here does not mean explanation. It means seeing. To interpret is to awaken, to turn symbol into sight. The gospel begins where all true teachings begin, in mystery offered to those who dare to understand themselves. Every word that follows is a mirror held up to consciousness. In Thomas, Jesus is less a preacher of repentance and more a poet of remembrance. He speaks as if the listener already knows, but has forgotten. He does not say, "Follow me." He says, "Know yourself," because the one who knows himself knows the Father. Here, divinity is not distant, it is dormant. And awakening is not obedience, it is recognition. This is why his words sound like riddles. They are designed to provoke sight, not to satisfy curiosity. Each saying is an alarm clock for the soul. The Gospel of Thomas begins not with commandment, but with invitation. It does not demand belief. It whispers, "Look. Look within. Look around. Look until seeing replaces searching." To hear these sayings is to begin walking the invisible road between worlds, from the known to the knowing. The first step is not faith, but attention. As you listen, let each phrase fall into silence before the next begins. For in the pauses, the hidden reveals itself. Chapter 2. Why Thomas wasn't canon. In the first centuries after Jesus, there was no single Christianity. There were Christianities, plural. Different communities, different memories, different ways of understanding what the teacher had meant. Some saw him as divine spirit, some as enlightened man, some as a bridge between heaven and earth. There were the followers of Peter, the mystics of John, the visionaries of Mary, the seekers who treasured Thomas. It was not yet a church. It was a conversation, raw, diverse, and alive. And from that chaos, orthodoxy would one day rise, shaping what was permitted to be remembered, and what would be buried. Scripture is not born innocent, it is chosen, and choice implies power. As the early bishops and councils gathered, they sought unity, one gospel, one creed, one authority to bind scattered believers. The four canonical Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were declared inspired, while others, like Thomas, were branded apocryphal. But the question remains, on what basis? The answer was not purely spiritual, it was political. A faith of empire required hierarchy, order, obedience, not dozens of competing revelations, whispering truth lies within. To rule a religion, one must rule its memory. Nowhere is the division clearer than between John and Thomas. In John's Gospel, Jesus is the light of the world. In Thomas, Jesus says, "There is light within a man of light, and it lights the whole world." John points to a single Savior. Thomas points to the light in all. John builds a theology of faith in him. Thomas speaks of knowing yourself. One depends on worship, the other on awakening. For a church seeking unity under one divine figure, Thomas was dangerous. His Jesus didn't demand devotion, he demanded insight. And insight cannot be regulated. The Greek word gnosis means knowledge, but not information. It means recognition, direct knowing of the divine spark within. Gnostic thought taught that salvation is not granted from above, it is discovered within. Such a teaching unravels hierarchy. If God can be known personally, what need for priests, temples, or mediators? To those building the early institution, this was rebellion disguised as revelation. Gnosis replaced obedience with experience. Faith became inner vision, and that could not be allowed to flourish unbound. Thomas in the text is called Didymos Judas Thomas, Thomas the twin. But twin to whom? Tradition says, to Jesus. Symbolically, to the divine within humanity. The twin is the self that must be recognized, the image of God mirrored in man. This is the secret of the Gospel's form, a dialogue between the teacher and his reflection. When Jesus says, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become like me," he speaks to that twin. The message is not imitation, but realization. Thomas represents the awakened self, the double who finally remembers who he is. When the Orthodox canon hardened, the alternative Gospels were hunted. Texts were confiscated, burned, rewritten. Teachers of Gnosis were branded heretics, false Christians corrupting the simple. And yet, copies survived, hidden in jars, sealed in caves, passed in whispers. The desert became a library, and there, for centuries, the secret waited until a farmer's shovel struck clay. The survival of Thomas feels less like accident and more like timing. When dogma began to fade in modernity, the buried text rose again, like a mirror re-emerging just as humanity looked for meaning beyond belief. Two kinds of faith now stand before us. One is faith as control, built on obedience, hierarchy, and fear of error. The other is faith as discovery, built on experience, introspection, and courage to see. Thomas belongs to the second path. Its message whispers across centuries. You are not separate from the divine you seek. This is why the text was hidden, and also why it returns. Because every age that forgets inwardness must rediscover it again. Chapter 3. The Kingdom. Not later. Now. Jesus said, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will realize that you are the sons of the living Father." At first, it sounds like a riddle, but here, Jesus dismantles the entire idea of a distant heaven. If the kingdom were in the sky, the birds would reach it before us. If it were in the sea, the fish would find it first. He's saying, stop looking elsewhere. Every time someone tells you salvation is far away, above, below, beyond, they rob you of the truth that it is already here. The kingdom is not a place. It is a state of awareness. When you know yourself, when you finally perceive what lies behind your thoughts, behind your name, you see that the same life moving through the universe moves through you. To be known means to be seen by that same divine awareness. The knower and the known become one. He is describing a unity so simple we overlook it, the human as the meeting point between earth and God. In this single saying, Jesus returns heaven to humanity. The kingdom is not above or below. It is the living light within and around you, revealed the moment you see. In your own life, this saying invites you to stop postponing peace. Notice how often you think, when I get there, then I'll rest. Instead, look closer. Each breath, each conversation is the kingdom presenting itself. You find heaven not by reaching higher, but by seeing deeper. In the canonical Gospels, Jesus often foretells events to come, kingdoms to arrive. In Thomas, he reveals, he is not a prophet of the future, but a philosopher of now. Each word is a hand pulling you back into the present. Heaven, to him, is not waiting beyond death, but breathing beneath distraction. He asks nothing of belief, only recognition. Heaven isn't hidden, attention is. When the noise of wanting quiets, the sacred comes forward naturally. The ordinary moment becomes infinite. To live this today is to practice full attention. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. Presence itself becomes prayer. Religion often makes waiting seem holy. Wait for salvation, wait for signs, wait for the end of days. But waiting is still sleeping. When you wait, you say, "Not yet." And that single phrase blinds you to the miracle unfolding right now. You could be surrounded by the divine and never see it because you are watching the horizon instead of the ground beneath your feet. Jesus' teaching in Thomas is radical because it cancels time. He says, "Stop counting days and start opening eyes." Eternity is not endless years. It is depth without distance. To wake now is to enter it. Ask yourself, what are you waiting for to begin living fully? The kingdom appears the moment you stop delaying gratitude. Practice finding one small joy in this instant, a sound, a scent, a quiet moment, and notice how eternity hides there. Jesus said, "The kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you." This one line closes the gap humanity invented. Heaven and earth are not two realms, but one continuous fabric. Inside and outside, spirit and matter, reflections of the same source. The outer world mirrors the inner one. What you see is shaped by how you see. When your perception changes, creation changes with it. That is the secret of the saying. Jesus does not build walls between sacred and profane. He dissolves them. The table, the market, the breath, the body, all are temples when seen rightly. The kingdom isn't reached by distance, but by depth. Each time you judge the world harshly, pause and look inward first. Your perception colors what you see. Change the gaze, and the world shifts with you. Even simple gratitude transforms ordinary moments into holy ground. His disciples said to him, "When will the new world come?" He said to them, "What you look forward to has already come, but you do not recognize it." His disciples said to him, "When will the kingdom come?" He said, "It will not come by watching for it." They will not say, "Look, here it is," or "Look, there." Rather, the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and men do not see it. These are among the most revealing lines in Thomas. The disciples are waiting for an age to come, a moment of world transformation. But Jesus breaks the spell of expectation. He says, "What you look forward to has already come." The kingdom, he insists, is not hidden by distance, but by blindness. It is already spread across the earth, yet unseen because the human eye is trained to seek spectacle. We look for thunder and fire, when divinity appears instead as wind, silence, and the rhythm of daily life. Heaven, to Jesus, is not a place waiting to descend. It is a vision waiting to awaken. This saying is a call to subtle seeing. Pause and notice the ordinary world around you. Not to judge it, but to witness it. The sound of traffic, the shape of a leaf, the warmth of someone's voice. These are all threads of the same kingdom he described. Learning to see them as sacred is what it means to recognize what has already come. Thomas is not a manual for withdrawal from life. It is a manual for seeing through it. The goal is not to leave the world behind, but to wake within it. Meditation, in this context, is not sitting still on a mountain. It is walking through your day as though it were a temple. Each act, opening a door, taking a sip of water, speaking a kind word, becomes a chance to remember that everything around you participates in the same divine pulse. The discipline is not escape, but attention. When you stop dividing sacred and secular, the whole world begins to shimmer. Choose one simple task today and make it your meditation. Wash a cup, walk a short distance, breathe deeply, but do it with full presence. See how peace appears when you stop rushing through the moment. That stillness is the texture of the kingdom. He said, "They will not say, 'Look, here it is,' or 'Look, there.'" Expectation blinds more deeply than doubt. The religious mind often misses revelation because it believes it already knows what revelation must look like. When divinity comes as something familiar, a stranger, a conversation, a moment of quiet, we dismiss it. The eyes of expectation look outward. The eyes of awakening look inward. Thomas is a map for returning sight to the heart. Those who insist that the kingdom must arrive with spectacle will never notice the way it glows in silence. Notice where you're still waiting for life to begin, expecting joy to arrive in a different job, a new place, a future version of yourself. The kingdom Thomas describes doesn't arrive. It is noticed. When you stop demanding that life change, you begin to see that it already carries what you were waiting for. All the sayings lead here. Stillness. Not the stillness of idleness, but of awareness resting in itself. The kingdom, after all the words and symbols, is not something to chase. It is what remains when chasing ends. Sit quietly now. Notice the breath as it enters and leaves. Feel the body resting on the earth. Hear the faint sounds around you. Distant voices, night air, your own heartbeat. Everything you can perceive, inside and outside, is part of the same sacred field Jesus spoke of. The kingdom spread across the earth, the world exactly as it is. Chapter 4. Seek, trouble, astonishment. Jesus said, "Let him who seeks continue to seek until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all." This is one of the most mysterious and psychological sayings in Thomas. It maps an inner process: seeking, disturbance, astonishment, mastery. First, the seeking. Spiritual life begins with dissatisfaction, the sense that something is missing or unseen. But Jesus warns that real seeking will not soothe you. It will unsettle you. To find truth means to lose illusion, and losing illusion always hurts. Then comes disturbance, the crumbling of old meanings, the confusion before clarity. Astonishment follows, not comfort, but awe. And finally, ruling over the all, which means no longer being ruled by the chaos of ignorance. Jesus is describing awakening not as a smooth ascent, but as a shock that rearranges the soul. If your search for meaning feels messy, you're likely on the right path. Confusion is not failure. It's the moment the surface begins to crack. Keep seeking, until you're astonished. That is where transformation starts. The saying offers 4 distinct stages, a staircase of consciousness. Seek. The hunger for understanding arises. Something within whispers, there is more. Find. You glimpse truth, often in flashes, moments of clarity or silence. Trouble. That clarity exposes what's false. The ego resists. Life feels unstable. Astonish. Seeing reality without filters, the beauty and terror of existence. From that vision comes freedom. These stages mirror the rhythm of every spiritual life: curiosity, crisis, revelation, and peace. No stage can be skipped. Disturbance is the bridge between ignorance and insight. When life feels uncertain, ask what falsehood might be dying. Often what we call trouble is truth undoing our comfort. Patience through that dismantling leads to astonishment, not as surprise, but as vision. Disturbance is not punishment, it is birth. The self that begins the search cannot survive the discovery. When you begin to see clearly, your attachments, fears, and false securities start to dissolve. That loss feels like chaos because the old self is dying. Jesus calls this state trouble, but it is the necessary pain of transformation. It is like waking in a dark room. At first, the light burns the eyes. But without that shock, there is no sight. When you feel resistance, breathe through it instead of fleeing it. Ask, what part of me is afraid to wake up? The discomfort is proof that something within you is expanding. After the storm of confusion comes astonishment, the pure recognition that reality is far vaster and more alive than the mind imagined. Astonishment is not mere surprise, it is the collapse of separation. It is seeing the ordinary as extraordinary, the familiar as miraculous. In that instant, the world glows with meaning. To be astonished is to see without filters, to meet life directly, without the commentary of thought. It is what mystics later called Gnosis, knowledge by presence. Try watching something simple, flame, water, sky, without naming it. Let the labels drop until only seeing remains. That quiet wonder is astonishment, the mind silent, the soul awake. In Thomas, restlessness is not weakness. It is the pulse of the seeker. A comfortable spirit cannot grow. The gospel values movement because stillness without awareness is sleep. Seeking keeps the heart alive. The world changes, and so must the way we see it. Restlessness keeps us from fossilizing into certainty. When Jesus says, "Continue to seek," he is sanctifying curiosity. Faith here is not blind belief, but the courage to keep questioning even when the answers tremble. Growth is not a straight line. It is a spiral, each turn bringing us closer to center, through motion, not through rest. Thomas's stages echo in modern thought. Psychologists speak of cognitive dissonance, when our inner models of reality begin to crack. Philosophers like Kierkegaard and Nietzsche describe it as the anxiety of awakening. Existentialists call it authentic despair. The moment you realize meaning isn't handed to you, it must be made. In every era, awakening begins with unease. The language shifts, but the pattern remains. Disturbance as doorway, astonishment as arrival. Today, it may come not through theology, but through crisis. Losing a job, a relationship, a belief. Each loss becomes a small gospel if it forces you to ask, who am I without this? The question is the opening of sight. Trouble does not last forever. The seeker who endures through confusion and astonishment emerges lighter, clearer, freer. To rule over the all is not to dominate the world, but to no longer be enslaved by it. It means the external ceases to dictate your inner state. You have seen behind the curtain. This is not authority over others. It is mastery of perception. You move through the same world, but now the light moves with you. And so the cycle repeats. Seek, find, be troubled, be astonished, again and again, each time with more clarity and compassion. The one who endures this rhythm walks not above life, but within it, carrying the quiet fire of understanding. Chapter 5. The Light You Came From. Jesus said, "There is light within a man of light, and it lights up the whole world. If it does not shine, he is in darkness." This saying is simple and vast. Jesus describes every human as a vessel of light, not a borrowed light, but a native one. It is not granted from heaven or earned through virtue. It is part of our design. There is light within a man of light. That phrase folds in on itself. It means there is something luminous inside the one who remembers he is luminous. Awareness feeds on awareness. The light shines only when it knows itself. Darkness, then, is not evil. It is forgetfulness. When a person forgets what they are, their own mind becomes a shadow over the radiance within. Thomas's gospel is an instruction in remembrance, how to recall the light that was never lost. In this saying, Jesus places the source of holiness not in the temple or the sky, but in the human heart. The kingdom's glow begins inside the seeker who finally sees. To say there is light within is to say we come from light. The human being, in Thomas's vision, is not created from dust and guilt, but from brightness and knowing. This is a theology of radiance, not repentance. In ancient cosmology, light is the first act of creation, the signal that existence has begun. Here, Jesus makes it personal. He is saying, that same primal light is what animates you. You are not a creature crawling toward divinity. You are divinity half asleep, remembering its own source. To live consciously, then, is to live as a transmitter of that origin, a fragment of the infinite, shining through time and form. If you could hold that awareness even for a moment, that the same current that powers stars breathes through you, your entire idea of limitation would begin to dissolve. Jesus said, "If they say to you, 'Where did you come from?' say to them, 'We came from the light,' the place where the light came into being of itself and established itself and became manifest through their image. If they say to you, 'Is it you?' say, 'We are its children, and we are the chosen of the living Father.'" This is one of the most cosmic passages in Thomas. It reads like a memory of the soul itself. He speaks of a light that came into being of itself, self-arising consciousness, the uncaused source. Before matter, before time, there was awareness. From that awareness, image appeared, the pattern of existence, the reflection that would become creation. And in that reflection, humanity. To say we are its children is not poetry, it is ontology. We are made of the same essence as the source, born not in sin, but in brilliance. When Jesus says, "Say, we are the chosen of the living Father," he is not exalting a tribe, but awakening an identity, the awareness that knows itself as part of the eternal. In Thomas, the Father is always the living Father, not a distant ruler, but the pulse within being itself. Life is the evidence of God, not belief, not ritual, but vitality. The Father is not elsewhere. The Father is the movement that animates breath, growth, light, thought. When Jesus speaks of the living Father, he means the source that never dies, the energy behind every form that appears and fades. In this light, divinity is not a person to worship, but a presence to recognize. The living Father is the wellspring that turns existence from mechanism into mystery. When we lose contact with that presence, we feel hollow, mechanical, cut off. When we remember it, even briefly, the world seems newly alive. Colors sharpen, time slows, silence deepens. It is not imagination. It is reconnection. Thomas was born in a world saturated with symbols of light. Egyptian mystics spoke of Ra, the solar source, the journey of the soul from darkness back to dawn. Greek philosophers like Plato told of the cave, where humanity sits facing shadows until one turns toward the sun and remembers the real. Gnostic teachers, blending both traditions, used light as shorthand for consciousness itself. Jesus' language in Thomas moves through those same rivers, but he turns myth into immediacy. The light is not a distant God, not an idea, but the living awareness in you. It is both ancient and present, cosmic and intimate. You carry within you the same mystery the ancients worshipped. You are not a servant of the sun. You are made of its radiance. And remembering that, even for a moment, can change the quality of every thought, every gesture, every breath. In Thomas, light and ignorance are not moral opposites. They are states of awareness. Darkness is simply forgetting. Light is remembering. When Jesus speaks of knowing the Father, he means seeing through illusion, recognizing that the separation between self and source was always imagined. Ignorance is not evil. It is amnesia. Every flash of understanding, every moment of genuine seeing is light returning to itself. To live without awareness is to stumble through a bright world with closed eyes. To live with awareness is to rediscover the radiance that never left. Thomas's gospel is less about salvation than illumination, how to turn the lamp back on. And the switch is simple: attention. When you truly attend to the breath, the voice of another, the quiet behind noise, the light reveals itself again. In this gospel, awakening is not a single revelation, but a practice of remembering. Each time you fall into distraction, you forget the light. Each time you return to awareness, you remember it. The work, then, is gentle repetition. Notice, awaken, forget, and notice again. Self-remembering is the rhythm of spiritual life, the constant turning back toward presence. To know yourself, as Jesus says, is not to analyze your personality. It is to remember that behind all thoughts and moods, there is a steady glow, awareness itself. That is the true self. The body changes, the mind changes, but awareness watches through it all. This remembrance is not prideful, it is humbling. For when you truly remember, you realize that what you call you has never been separate from what you call God. Jesus said, if they ask you, what is the sign of your Father within you? Say to them, it is movement and repose. Here the teacher gives a sign of union, movement and repose. Life flows, life rests, and both are divine. The universe breathes in rhythms, expansion and contraction, sound and silence, birth and stillness. To live in harmony with the Father is to move and rest in equal grace. Most people chase one and fear the other. We work, strive, and perform, movement without rest, or withdraw, numb, and hide, rest without movement. But the sign of balance, Jesus says, is to hold both. To act without losing stillness, to rest without losing life. This is the rhythm of enlightened being, the dance of the eternal within the temporary. Light is the first word of creation, but silence is its last. All things that shine eventually fold back into quiet. In that quiet, nothing is lost. Everything returns to its source. Close your eyes. Breathe softly. The light that moves through stars, through cities, through thought itself. It burns gently behind your ribs. It was there before birth. It will remain after death. It is not yours, yet it moves as you. When you remember that, fear dissolves and rest becomes sacred. Chapter 6. Poverty and Wealth, the Spirit in Clay. Jesus said, if the flesh came into being because of spirit, it is a marvel. But if spirit came into being because of the body, it is a marvel of marvels. Yet I marvel at how this great wealth has made its home in this poverty. This is one of the most poetic and paradoxical sayings in Thomas. Jesus is not condemning the body, nor is he glorifying spirit. He is astonished at their union. He looks at the human condition. divine consciousness inside fragile flesh, and calls it a marvel of marvels. Spirit inhabiting matter, eternity wearing skin. The infinite squeezed into the temporary, yet still radiant. The poverty is the body, limited, aging, breakable. The wealth is spirit, limitless awareness that somehow breathes through clay. The wonder, for Jesus, is that such richness endures inside such fragility. It is both humbling and sacred, the divine choosing to dwell in dust. If you ever doubt your worth, remember this: you are proof that infinity trusted itself enough to live as you. To say that the body is poverty is not to insult it. It is to recognize its impermanence. The material world in Thomas is not evil, but thin. It is a shadow of something greater, an echo of the real. The tragedy comes when we mistake the echo for the source, when we worship the clay and forget the breath inside it. Every attachment, every obsession with form, status, beauty, possession, deepens forgetfulness. The world is a veil. When seen correctly, it reveals. When clung to, it obscures. The wise do not reject it. They look through it. They touch the material without being bound by it. The point is not escape, but translucence, to live lightly upon the earth, letting the eternal shine through the temporary. Jesus said, "Whoever has come to know the world has discovered a corpse, and whoever has discovered a corpse, of him the world is not worthy." It is a shocking image, a corpse for the world. But Jesus is not speaking with disgust. He is teaching perspective. To know the world means to see it without illusion. When you see that all forms decay, that time eats everything it creates, you stop mistaking matter for meaning. The corpse is not the planet. It is attachment to what cannot last. The one who sees this clearly is not worthy of the world, meaning they no longer belong to it in the same way. They still walk and breathe and work, but inwardly they live elsewhere, anchored in what does not rot. Seeing mortality clearly is not morbid. It is liberating. It returns value to the eternal. It teaches you to love without clinging, to hold without owning. There is a fine line between detachment and denial. Thomas's Jesus never tells his followers to hate life, only to see it clearly. Denial rejects the world and breeds bitterness. Detachment looks through it and finds freedom. The ascetic who scorns beauty is still enslaved by it, because he defines himself against it. True detachment holds the world lightly, grateful for what appears, at peace when it fades. Jesus' words invite balance, to live in the world, but not of it, to enjoy form without forgetting the formless, to love deeply, yet know that every face, every object, every possession is a passing mask of the same divine substance. Poverty in Thomas is not deprivation. It is freedom from possession. To be poor in spirit means to own nothing inwardly, not even your identity. When you cease clinging to status, opinion, and outcome, a new wealth appears: peace. It cannot be purchased or lost. It comes only to those who have let go of the illusion of ownership. This is why Jesus marvels at the spirit in clay, because the infinite has already emptied itself into simplicity. To imitate that emptiness is to align with the divine, to live open-handed, unattached, free. True poverty is not about losing what you have. It is about no longer being owned by what you hold. Throughout his teachings, Jesus warns of the rich fool, the one who stores wealth and loses awareness. Not because money itself is evil, but because accumulation blinds the heart. When all your energy goes into maintaining what you have, there is no room left to awaken. Greed, fear, and vanity seal the light within. The rich fool mistakes possession for security, forgetting that both crumble with time. He does not see that the only real abundance is inner clarity, a wealth that expands the more you share it. Thomas's gospel reverses the worldly equation. Poverty brings freedom, wealth brings weight. Freedom belongs to those who can walk away smiling. The journey of Thomas's seeker is from clay to light, not rejection of matter, but transformation of it. The same body that limits us becomes the very field of awakening. Spirit entered flesh so that awareness could learn to see through form. Your senses, your emotions, your daily life. These are not obstacles to God. They are the canvas through which light expresses itself. The task is simple. Remember what breathes inside the clay. Let the Spirit shine through your speech, your work, your love. Then even the most ordinary act becomes sacred. To live this way is to turn poverty into art, the human form as lamp, the world as altar, the breath as prayer. Chapter 7. Becoming One. The Solitary. Jesus said, "When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, and when you make the male and the female into a single one, so that the male shall not be male, and the female shall not be female, then you will enter the kingdom." This is the heart of Thomas, a map of unity, disguised as paradox. Jesus speaks not of erasing difference, but of reconciling opposites. The human being, he says, is divided by gender, by thought, by the illusion of separateness. To make the two one is to return to wholeness, to remember the original harmony that existed before the mind split the world into dualities. Heaven and earth, inner and outer, masculine and feminine. These are not enemies, but reflections of a single source. To enter the kingdom is to become undivided again. In ancient spiritual language, masculine and feminine are not genders, but polarities, active and receptive, sun and moon, reason and intuition. Most lives swing between these forces, doing and being, thinking and feeling, rarely realizing that both are needed for balance. When Jesus says to make the male and female one, he points to the marriage of action and awareness. When these merge, the soul stops oscillating and begins to move as a whole. You feel it when your mind quiets and your intuition speaks. when decisiveness and empathy act together. That harmony is not neutrality, it is completeness. The kingdom is entered not through dominance, but through integration. Make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside. Here Jesus continues his vision of unity, dissolving the split between spirit and matter. The outer world mirrors the inner one. The heavens mirror the earth. What is above lives within. What is within manifests without. He teaches that there is no sacred realm separate from the ordinary. The way you live, speak, and see the world is your prayer. Every act reveals or conceals the divine. When you make the inside like the outside, life becomes seamless. Integrity replaces hypocrisy. Presence replaces performance. You no longer hide the inner world from the outer one. You become transparent to your own soul. To enter the kingdom is to live without contradiction. Jesus said, "Blessed are the solitary and the elect, for you will find the kingdom. For you have come from it, and you will return there again." The solitary is not lonely, he is whole. The elect are not the privileged few, but those who have remembered their origin. To be solitary in this sense is to no longer depend on external validation for identity. You no longer live by comparison or fear of abandonment. You are self-contained, complete, the same in crowd and in silence. Such solitude is not separation from others. It is union with all. The solitary has made peace with himself, and therefore with the world. He does not belong to the kingdom as a reward. He belongs because he never left it. Centuries after Thomas, Carl Jung described individuation, the process by which the conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, are brought into balance. The goal is not perfection, but wholeness. Jung might have called what Jesus describes the reconciliation of opposites, animus and anima, shadow and self. Integration begins when the hidden parts of us, fear, desire, pain, are met with awareness instead of repression. To make the two one in psychological terms is to accept every fragment of yourself and see it as part of the same total being. Light without shadow is blindness. Only by embracing both can vision become clear. In this way, the Gospel of Thomas anticipates the psychology of integration, salvation not as escape from the human, but as its completion. Mystics across traditions speak of a sacred marriage, the union of the soul with its source. In Thomas, this marriage happens within the self. When the inner and outer are reconciled, when the masculine and feminine no longer oppose each other, the wedding takes place. The soul becomes bride and groom. Heaven and earth join, and awareness stands unveiled. It is a wedding without guests, silent, interior, eternal. You know it by peace that does not depend on circumstance. You know it by the sense that nothing is missing. This is the true entering of the kingdom. Not an arrival, but a reunion. The solitary Jesus blesses is not the hermit who hides from the world, but the one who carries inner unity into it. Isolation is absence. Solitude is presence. Isolation says, "I need no one." Solitude says, I am connected to everyone through the same source. One cuts away, the other deepens roots. In solitude, you are never alone. You are accompanied by the wholeness you have become. Relationships born from that wholeness are no longer about need, but about recognition. You meet others not to complete yourself, but to reflect what's already whole. When the two become one, conflict ends. The war between body and spirit, thought and feeling, desire and duty, quiets. You stop chasing one side of the duality and begin to rest in the middle. This is not numbness, but harmony. You act without tension, speak without deceit, love without fear. The world remains complex, but you are no longer torn apart by it. To live in this integration is to embody peace, the same peace Jesus calls the kingdom. It is the still point between all opposites, the heart that holds every contradiction and calls it one. Chapter 8. The secret between Jesus and Thomas. Jesus said to his disciples, "Compare me to someone and tell me whom I am like." The Gospel of Thomas hides one of its most intimate moments here, a conversation that unveils the essence of the entire text. Jesus asks not to be praised, but to be perceived. He is testing the vision of his students, whether they can see beyond the surface of form and title. Who am I is not a question of vanity. It is the question of awakening itself. Can they see the divine without the mask of personhood? Simon Peter said to him, "You are like a righteous angel." Matthew said to him, "You are like a wise philosopher." Thomas said to him, "Master, my mouth is wholly incapable of saying whom you are like." Each answer reveals the speaker's level of sight. Peter praises moral perfection, the angelic. Matthew praises intellect, the philosophical. Both still speak from distance, defining the divine by comparison. Then Thomas speaks, but only to confess speechlessness. My mouth is wholly incapable. He alone recognizes that to name the infinite is to shrink it. His humility becomes revelation. Where others describe, he surrenders. Where they speak, he bows to mystery. And Jesus answers him, "I am not your master. Because you have drunk, you have become intoxicated from the bubbling spring I have measured out." In that instant, the dialogue ends. Thomas does not need description, and Jesus no longer needs discipleship. The seeker and the source have met at the same depth. When Jesus says, "I am not your master," it is not dismissal, it is graduation. He ends the age of dependence. Thomas has tasted from the same spring. He no longer seeks truth outside himself. True teachers disappear the moment their student awakens. Authority collapses into equality, not egoic equality, but shared awareness. The master's work is fulfilled when his image dissolves, and the light stands alone in the student. This is the secret tone of Thomas: liberation, not obedience. And he took him aside and spoke 3 words to him. When Thomas returned to his companions, they asked, "What did Jesus say to you?" Thomas said, "If I tell you even one of the words he said to me, you will pick up stones and throw them at me. Fire will come from the stones and burn you up." Here the gospel turns inward. 3 words, never revealed, pass between them, too potent for the unready. They are not information, but ignition. Whatever was spoken did not add knowledge. It erased distance. Perhaps the words were, "You are me." Perhaps they were silence given sound. Whatever they were, they mark the instant of recognition, truth realized rather than taught. Thomas leaves changed. His mouth, once incapable, now holds the secret that words would only betray. Thomas's name means Didymos, the twin. He is not a twin of blood, but of being. He mirrors Jesus, not biologically, but metaphysically. The twin is the awakened self, the one who has remembered that what it calls Christ and what it calls I are made of the same light. When Jesus takes him aside, it is not to create hierarchy, but to complete symmetry, divinity seeing itself. 2 mirrors face one another, and between them, infinity unfolds. Jesus said, "He who will drink from my mouth will become like me. I myself shall become he, and the things that are hidden will be revealed to him." This is the key to their secret. Thomas has drunk from the mouth of the teacher, absorbed his consciousness. No imitation, no worship. Participation. To drink is to dissolve the border between giver and receiver. I am not you, but you have become me. Identity itself turns fluid. Divinity multiplies through recognition. In institutional religion, this is dangerous. In mysticism, it is the goal. Their dialogue becomes a parable of reflection. The disciple looks into the face of the teacher and finds no other. Jesus, the mirror of awareness, reflects Thomas until the mirror itself disappears. This is why Jesus asks, "Who am I?" Not to be described, but to awaken the same seeing in those who look. When you recognize the mirror, worship turns into realization. The Christ is not a singular being. It is the awakened state in all who see as he sees. Union is not merging personalities. It is the death of separation. Ego wants to possess divinity. Awareness simply is divinity. Thomas does not become another Jesus. He becomes what Jesus always was, consciousness free of boundaries. It is not exaltation, but erasure, the drop remembering the ocean. This is why the secret cannot be told. Language belongs to division. Union belongs to silence. Thomas returns to the group and says nothing more. He knows that speech would only fracture what has been united. The truest understanding is wordless, the heart resting in its own reflection. The gospel ends the exchange here, as if to show that enlightenment has no closing statement. The answer to, "Who am I?" is found only when the question dissolves. Chapter 9. Children, Reversal, and Simplicity. Jesus said, "The man old in days will not hesitate to ask a little child of 7 days about the place of life, and he will live. For many who are first will become last, and they will become one and the same." This saying opens the door to the central paradox of Thomas. Wisdom hides in simplicity. Jesus reverses the world's logic. The learned must kneel before the innocent, the old before the newly born. Knowledge for him is not accumulation, but clarity. The child of 7 days symbolizes the soul unburdened by memory, the self before self-consciousness. The elder who humbles himself to ask that child recovers life because he returns to immediacy. To live in this sense is to see without pretense, to remember the original freshness of perception. The mature mind complicates, the awakened mind simplifies. To become small is not to be naive, but to shed the layers of defense, ambition, and analysis that obscure direct seeing. A child does not divide experience into sacred and profane. To her, everything is alive, everything worthy of attention. She does not demand meaning. She discovers it moment by moment. Jesus invites his followers back into that kind of seeing, to notice the wonder that knowledge forgets. Only a consciousness light enough to play can perceive the kingdom spread across the earth. To become small is to regain proportion, to realize that the vastness of reality does not need to be conquered, only witnessed. Jesus said, "From Adam to John the Baptist, among those born of women, there is none so exalted as John the Baptist, that his eyes should not be averted before him. Yet I have said, whoever among you becomes a child will know the kingdom and become greater than John." The teacher overturns hierarchy again. Even the greatest prophet, the ascetic John, stands below the child in spirit. Why? Because the child has no burden of reputation, no self-image to defend. She is pure responsiveness, fully open to what is. Jesus is not dismissing prophets. He is redefining greatness. The mature spiritual path does not ascend through mastery, but descends through innocence. To become greater than John is to outgrow comparison altogether. Innocence is often mistaken for ignorance, but in Thomas it means uncorrupted awareness. It is the wisdom that comes before judgment, the moment when perception is clean. The wise are those who can look at the world without resentment or cynicism, who can still be surprised. Their minds are sharp, but their hearts remain soft. They are not blinded by experience. They have learned how to see freshly despite it. Jesus' call to become like children is not regression, it is restoration. He is asking the listener to remember what the intellect forgets, that joy, wonder, and humility are forms of understanding. The first shall be last is not moral punishment. It is equilibrium. Everything in creation moves toward balance. Those who exalt themselves rise only to fall. Those who kneel rise without trying. This reversal is not irony. It is the natural rhythm of the universe. When you grasp too tightly, life loosens your grip. When you open your hands, life fills them. The kingdom in Thomas is not a future reward. but a reversal of perception. The meek inherit the earth because they no longer compete for it. Reversal is not tragedy, it is restoration. The kingdom is not reserved for the clever, the powerful, or the pure. It belongs to those who can see the world as new. Childlike consciousness is direct, participatory, and forgiving. It does not separate observer from observed. It sees the divine in what is ordinary, in dust motes, laughter, passing rain. To live this way is to live lightly, to stop clutching at meaning and start meeting it. When Jesus says the kingdom belongs to children, he is describing not age, but awareness. The one who can look at the world without resistance, without disguise, has already entered it. Chapter 10. Parables of shock, lion, fisher, mustard, fire. Jesus said, "Blessed is the lion which becomes man when consumed by man, and cursed is the man whom the lion consumes, and the lion becomes man." This brief, feral image startles the mind awake. It sounds violent, even strange, but it is not about animals. It is about consciousness. The lion represents the instinctive, untamed nature. Desire, rage, hunger, survival. The man represents awareness, the capacity to observe, to choose, to transcend impulse. If awareness devours the beast, the lion becomes human. Instinct is transformed into power under consciousness. But if the lion devours the man, the person becomes ruled by appetite, consumed by what he cannot master. In this strange blessing and curse, Jesus encodes a law of inner alchemy. What you face and integrate becomes strength. What you fear and flee becomes your master. Those who learn to feed on their impulses with awareness are blessed. The raw lion becomes light. Every human being carries both hunter and hunted within. The mind chases pleasure. The heart runs from pain. Awakening is the moment you realize you are both. Thomas's Jesus is not moralizing. He is describing psychology. You cannot kill the lion. You must digest it. To eat your lion means to bring instinct into consciousness, to see your anger, desire, and fear not as enemies, but as energies waiting for transformation. If you repress the predator, it will devour you in secret. If you face it, the lion becomes guardian, courage, life force. This is the mystery of integration, the beast redeemed by awareness. When Jesus blesses the lion that becomes man, he blesses the courage to look inward without fear. Jesus said, "The man is like a wise fisherman who cast his net into the sea. He drew it up from the sea full of little fish. Among them, the wise fisherman found a fine, large fish. He threw all the little fish back into the sea and chose the large fish without difficulty. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear." This parable strikes at the heart of discernment. The sea is the world, endless, teeming with experiences, beliefs, distractions. The fisherman is the seeker. His net is attention. Every day we haul in countless small fish, opinions, habits, fleeting pleasures. But among them lies one great truth, the large fish, the living awareness that sustains all others. The wise fisherman lets go of the many to keep the one. To have ears to hear means to recognize what is essential and to release what is not. True wisdom is not collecting more fish, but knowing which one is worth keeping. The modern mind drowns in options. We are surrounded by small fish, endless stimuli promising meaning, none delivering depth. The teaching of the fisherman is ruthless simplicity. Choose the one that feeds the soul. In every moment, one thing matters more than the rest. Silence among noise, truth among talk, love among pride. Find that one, and let the others swim away. Discernment, in Thomas, is salvation through clarity. The kingdom is not hidden by complexity, but by excess. To live wisely is to cast your net wide, but to bring home only what nourishes. The disciples said to Jesus, "Tell us what the kingdom of heaven is like." He said to them, "It is like a mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds. But when it falls on tilled soil, it produces a great plant and becomes a shelter for birds of the sky." Again, Jesus compresses eternity into an image. The mustard seed, tiny, ordinary, nearly invisible, grows into something vast enough to offer refuge. The kingdom begins small, hidden in simplicity, in the unnoticed moments of life. But when planted in readiness, tilled soil, a prepared mind, it becomes the tree of life itself. This is how transformation works, quietly, invisibly, expanding until the soul becomes a home for others. The parable carries a secret inversion. The smallest contains the largest. The insignificant births the infinite. Heaven is not built through grandeur, but through attention to what seems trivial. A breath, an act of kindness, a moment of stillness. Those who honor small beginnings already live within the seed of the kingdom. The mustard seed is the emblem of hidden greatness, the divine pattern that begins invisible and matures into shelter. Every living thing carries this pattern. Growth through stillness, majesty through humility. The world measures greatness by size and spectacle. Thomas's Jesus reverses it. What is smallest holds the most power, because it is pure potential. A seed becomes vast precisely because it begins in darkness. This parable comforts the unseen, those who labor quietly, those whose work no one applauds. In the language of Thomas, their humility is not loss, it is germination. The roots of the kingdom grow beneath notice, and by the time the world looks up, the tree is already bearing fruit. To trust the hidden is to live by a different law, the slow, patient logic of light. Jesus said, "I have cast fire upon the world, and see, I watch over it until it blazes." This is one of the most startling sayings in the gospel. Fierce, not gentle. Jesus here is not a comforter. He is ignition. The fire is consciousness itself, awareness that spreads through the world, burning away falseness, inertia, and sleep. It is not destruction for its own sake, but purification. The same flame that consumes illusion illuminates truth. He does not threaten judgment. He announces transformation. The world, asleep in repetition, must burn to awaken. And he, the presence of awakening, watches until it blazes. This is the paradox of spiritual fire. It destroys what we cling to, and in doing so, saves what we truly are. Fire, in the mystical tradition, is both end and beginning. It is the energy that reduces form to essence, that clears the ground for renewal. Thomas's Jesus stands not as arsonist, but as guardian of the necessary burning. When falsehoods ignite, truth becomes visible through the smoke. The world must sometimes lose its shape to remember its soul. In the individual, this is crisis and clarity intertwined. When your certainties collapse, when your habits crumble, when the fire finds you, do not run. That heat is grace. The ashes it leaves behind are fertile soil. What survives the burning is what was real all along. The parables of Thomas are not moral lessons to obey, but keys to inner seeing. They are symbolic engines, each image designed to shock the mind out of habitual thought. The lion, the fisherman, the seed, the fire. These are not historical events or predictions. They are mirrors held up to consciousness. To read them literally is to miss their power. To read them symbolically is to let them work on you. Each parable is a doorway into awareness. It does not describe heaven. It creates a state in which heaven can be seen. Understanding Thomas means listening with imagination, not logic, with intuition, not intellect. The question is never, what does it mean? But what in me responds? Now the images stand together. A lion tamed by awareness. A fisherman choosing the great fish. A mustard seed that shelters the sky. A fire that burns the world awake. They are not to be solved, but absorbed. They speak a language older than words, the tongue of symbol and silence. Let them echo. Let them rearrange the furniture of your mind. Their purpose is not to instruct, but to ignite. Chapter 11. Keys of Gnosis. Jesus said, "The Pharisees and the scholars have taken the keys of knowledge and hidden them. They themselves have not entered, nor have they allowed those who wish to enter to go in." Here Jesus names one of the oldest spiritual crimes, the hoarding of knowledge. The keys are not doctrines, but direct access to the divine. The Pharisees, symbolic of all institutions that prize control over understanding, guard the door to truth and call it piety. They hold rituals, rules, interpretations, but the door they guard is locked from the inside. They mistake possession of Scripture for possession of wisdom, and in their fear of losing authority, they bury the living key, the inner knowing called Gnosis. Jesus' anger is not against religion, but against the interruption of revelation. He demands that the gate be opened, because the kingdom was never meant to be mediated. Authority demands obedience. Knowledge demands experience. Jesus' quarrel is not with law, but with those who make law into a wall. To know truth directly is dangerous to hierarchy. A free mind cannot be ruled. That is why the Pharisees hide the keys. They fear a world where each soul can hear God for itself. In Thomas, the key is self-knowledge, the awareness that you already contain what you seek. The institutional world cannot profit from that kind of liberation. It prefers dependence, not discovery. Jesus' revolution is inward, a priesthood of consciousness, where each person becomes their own temple, each mind its own sanctuary. Jesus said, "Be passers-by." The shortest saying in Thomas, and one of the most profound. In 3 words, he teaches freedom from possession, identity, and fear. To be a passerby is to travel through life without being caught by it. It is not detachment in coldness, but clarity in motion. You own nothing, not even your opinions. You hold the world lightly because you know you are passing through. The Pharisees build walls. The Gnostic walks. He does not hoard, defend, or settle. He moves, seeing through appearances, untouched by the illusion of permanence. The one who passes by cannot be captured. Not by dogma, not by fear, not by praise. This is what true freedom feels like. Mobility of soul. Every traveler carries little. He learns to adapt, to receive, to let go. This is not only the attitude of a pilgrim, but of a mystic. The traveler mind knows that form changes constantly. What was sacred yesterday may be dead today. Truth does not stand still. It moves with the living. To live as a passerby is to treat every encounter as temple, every moment as teacher. There is nowhere to arrive because the kingdom travels with you. The Pharisee fears change. The traveler embodies it. The traveler does not guard the key. He becomes it. Jesus said, "The kingdom of the Father is like a man who wanted to kill a powerful man. In his own house, he drew the sword and struck it into the wall to find out whether his hand was strong. Then he killed the powerful man." This is one of Jesus' most cryptic parables. The powerful man is the ego, the inner tyrant who rules by fear and illusion. The sword is awareness. The seeker must test his own strength before confronting the false ruler within. Only through courage and practice, striking the wall again and again, does one gain the force to overthrow ignorance. The kingdom is seized not by violence against others, but by daring to face the false power inside. In another saying, he warns, "If the householder knows the hour the thief will come, he will stay awake." The same vigilance is required here. Constant inner watchfulness. The thief is awakening itself, arriving when the mind least expects it. The true danger is not external persecution, it is inner sleep. The unaware life drifts through existence, reciting beliefs instead of seeing reality. Jesus calls his followers to vigilance, not paranoia. but presence. To stay awake is the essence of Gnosis. Awareness must be practiced like breathing. When the mind grows lazy, illusion creeps back in. When attention returns, the false walls dissolve. The Pharisee watches others, the Gnostic watches himself. Inner watchfulness is the light that exposes the hidden tyrants of habit, fear, and imitation. It is the continual remembrance that the kingdom is not to come. It is here, waiting to be noticed. The chapter closes where it began, with freedom from gatekeepers. The Pharisees, the authorities, the interpreters, all represent the externalization of truth. But the keys of Gnosis are forged within. When you stop outsourcing your seeing, you become responsible for your own light. Outer law gives order. Inner awareness gives life. The first can control behavior. Only the second can free the soul. To live by Gnosis is to live as your own witness, alert, unafraid, and unattached. You walk through temples, doctrines, and traditions as a passerby, bowing to none, yet honoring all. This is the freedom Jesus offers. Not rebellion against holiness, but the discovery that holiness was never outside you. Chapter 12. Disrobing without shame. His disciples said, "When will you appear to us? And when shall we see you?" Jesus said, "When you take off your garments without being ashamed, and place them under your feet like little children and trample them, then you will see the Son of the Living One, and you will not be afraid." This saying is among the most daring in the Gospel of Thomas. It speaks not of physical nakedness, but of spiritual exposure, the stripping away of everything false, borrowed or performed. Jesus tells his followers that to truly see him, to see truth, they must first stand bare before reality. Garments here are symbols of identity, roles, beliefs, defenses, and illusions that we clothe ourselves in. To trample them like children means to return to innocence, fearless, playful, unashamed. Vision comes not through accumulation, but through surrender. When the last covering falls, the living one appears, radiant in the open soul. Every soul wears garments. Some are woven from pride, others from fear. Some stitched from religion, others from rebellion. We wear them to feel protected, to appear significant, to hide our uncertainty. But Jesus insists these coverings obscure the real face of spirit. The self that says, "I am this," or "I am that," cannot see the Son of the Living One, because it lives inside costume. The world rewards those who stay clothed, who play their roles well, but the gospel demands something deeper. The courage to undress before truth. This is not shameful exposure, but holy honesty. It is the act of standing before God and saying, "Here I am," nothing hidden, nothing held back. To see the Son of the Living One is not to witness a figure in the sky, but to awaken to consciousness itself, the divine life animating all things. Jesus equates seeing him with seeing life unveiled. The moment one removes the layers of pretense, the eternal becomes visible everywhere. The living one is not a being apart, but the pure awareness that sees through you. When identity dissolves, perception clears. Reality, once filtered by ego, appears as it truly is, alive, luminous, whole. Thus, the vision of Christ is not external revelation. It is inward recognition. You do not find him. You remember him. The ego is the finest garment of all, soft, invisible, convincing. It wraps around consciousness so naturally that we forget we are wearing it. It whispers, "I am this body, this name, this story." It fears exposure because its fabric is woven from comparison and memory. To remove it feels like death, but what dies is illusion. When Jesus speaks of trampling garments underfoot, he means trampling the ego, the voice that says, "Mine, better, separate." He invites his followers to a freedom beyond identity, where the boundaries between self and world dissolve. The naked soul is not lost, it is home. Nakedness in this sense is perception unmediated by defense. It is not physical, but existential. The ability to meet life without filter or fear. The naked soul sees everything, pain, beauty, mortality, and does not recoil. Such vision feels raw at first, but it is clarity itself. It frees the heart from projection and the mind from judgment. To see without garment is to see without prejudice, to look upon creation as God does, without shame, without preference, in love. The serpent in Genesis clothed humanity in self-consciousness. Thomas's Jesus undresses it again, restoring the innocent gaze. All true ritual leads to nakedness. Whether in confession, meditation, or silence, the goal is to remove layers until only sincerity remains. Vulnerability is not weakness, but doorway. When you allow yourself to be seen, truly seen by life, you discover it was never judging you. The shame you feared was only your own reflection. This is why Jesus connects disrobing with fearlessness. Then you will see the living one, and you will not be afraid. When nothing is hidden, nothing can be threatened. The one who stands bare cannot be enslaved. Freedom from form does not mean abandoning the body or denying the world. It means no longer mistaking your outer wrapping for your essence. You can wear garments, names, roles, stories. But now you know they are costumes, not truth. You walk through life clothed but unbound, able to lay down any identity at will. This is the paradox of enlightenment. The more you disrobe inwardly, the more freely you can move outwardly. You are no longer afraid of change, exposure, or judgment, because you stand in the light that was there before the first thread was woven. Chapter 13, Scandal and Androgyny. Jesus said, "Whoever does not hate his father and his mother cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not hate his brothers and sisters and take up his cross as I do will not be worthy of me." These words scandalize the modern ear, and they were meant to. Jesus is not teaching cruelty. He is using shock to free the listener from inherited attachment. To hate here means to detach, to see beyond the emotional and cultural conditioning that defines one's identity. In the ancient world, loyalty to family was absolute. To suggest transcending it was unthinkable. But the kingdom that Jesus speaks of cannot be entered by bloodline, tribe, or tradition. It is born through consciousness, not inheritance. He calls his followers to love truth more than comfort, even when it severs the bonds that shape them. This is not rebellion against family, but liberation from its unconscious rule. Spiritual awakening always feels like betrayal to the culture that raised you. Every system, even the loving one, has its limits. Every home teaches its version of truth. But to awaken is to see beyond these frames. To hate father and mother is to stop mistaking the familiar for the true. It is to grow from dependence to discernment. The disciple does not abandon love. He purifies it. Love becomes universal, no longer bound by clan or expectation. This is the cost of freedom, to walk one step beyond the inherited circle. The deeper you awaken, the less the world recognizes you, and the less you need it to. The Gospel of Thomas thrives on paradox. It uses scandal not to offend, but to awaken the mind from certainty. The sayings are riddles that dismantle comfort. Each contradiction pries open the heart. Jesus' harsh words are medicine, not malice. They shock the intellect so the soul can hear. The listener must pass through confusion to clarity. In this way, paradox becomes the teacher itself, forcing one to think, then to drop thought. Only then does the truth reveal itself. Beyond logic, beyond duality. Simon Peter said to them, "Let Mary leave us, for women are not worthy of life." Jesus said, "See, I shall lead her so that I will make her male, that she too may become a living spirit resembling you males. For every woman who makes herself male will enter the kingdom of heaven." No saying in Thomas has provoked more confusion or outrage. Read literally, it sounds cruel, even misogynistic. Read symbolically, it becomes an astonishing metaphor for transformation. Male and female here do not refer to gender, but to spiritual polarity. In the mystical lexicon of the time, the male principle symbolized consciousness, activity, and self-awareness. The female represented receptivity, matter, and the world of becoming. Jesus is not condemning womanhood. He is calling all souls, male and female, to unite both forces and rise beyond dual form. To make Mary male means to awaken the passive into the active, the unconscious into the conscious, so that wholeness is achieved. Centuries of literalism obscured this message. Institutional religion, eager to defend hierarchy, took metaphor for rule. But the mystics always read differently. In their eyes, the divine is androgynous, neither male nor female, yet containing both. Creation itself is the interplay of these energies, heaven and earth, thought and form, spirit and body. When Jesus speaks of transcending gender, he speaks of the same union hinted at in Genesis. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. The return to that image, the reintegration of opposites, is the true rebirth. Mary's transformation is humanity's transformation to become both receptive and awake, grounded and luminous. This teaching echoes earlier sayings, making the two one, inner like outer, male with female. It is the same principle repeated under different veils. Thomas arranges his gospel like a spiral, the same truth revisited from deeper angles. The soul must marry its opposites. Reason must meet intuition. Action must rest in stillness. Form must yield to spirit. Only in integration can the divine image appear whole again. The human who achieves this unity ceases to be male or female in the dual sense. They become what early mystics called the anthropos, the complete human. It takes courage to teach through scandal. Jesus risks misunderstanding because the truth cannot be conveyed through polite words alone. He chooses offense as awakening, the jolt that cracks the shell of cultural conditioning. The Gospel of Thomas does not seek followers who obey. It seeks seekers who dare to see. To understand these sayings, one must let go of piety and enter the wild terrain of paradox, where holiness wears the face of contradiction. This is the courage required to endure the discomfort of unlearning. Those who can stay awake through the shock emerge freer, lighter, and truer. When the opposites reconcile, conflict ends. The war between heaven and earth, male and female, self and other, dissolves into wholeness. This is not sameness, but harmony. Difference seen as expression, not division. Peace is not achieved by erasing contrast, but by seeing through it. The awakened soul moves beyond identity into unity. Not man or woman, not Jew or Greek, not saint or sinner. In that vision, the kingdom dawns, everything belongs, nothing is exiled. Chapter 14, The Hidden Made Plain. Jesus said, "There is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, and nothing covered that will remain without being uncovered." So the Gospel of Thomas ends where all true revelation begins, with light. Every veil that seemed to separate spirit from flesh, heaven from earth, has been lifted. The teacher who spoke in riddles, the sayings that tangled thought, were all pointing here to the unveiling of what was never truly concealed. Truth in Thomas is not granted, it is remembered. The kingdom was not lost, only unseen. Each saying was a mirror, each paradox a torch, each silence a key. Now the journey circles back to its first insight. The kingdom is inside you and outside you, waiting to be noticed. Revelation is not an event, but a rhythm. It happens every time you choose awareness over distraction, honesty over mask, presence over delay. The hidden becomes plain, not because the world changes, but because your seeing does. To live illuminated is to live transparently, to let your words, actions, and thoughts shine through without disguise. Light does not judge, it reveals. Illumination does not demand perfection. It simply refuses to hide. Every act of kindness, every pause of understanding is revelation continuing through you. You become part of the same unveiling Jesus began. Jesus said, "What you hear with your ear, proclaim from your housetops. For no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, nor does he put it in a hidden place. He sets it on a stand, so that all who come and go may see its light." The listener, having received the inner lamp, is now told what to do with it. Do not hide the flame. Do not shrink from shining. Truth was never meant to be hoarded. Illumination completes itself only in sharing. To proclaim from housetops is not to preach, but to live visibly awake. The lamp is your consciousness, and the stand is your daily life. Place it high enough that others, even unknowingly, can see by its glow. In this way, revelation becomes contagious. Jesus said, "If two make peace with each other in this one house, they will say to the mountain, 'Move away,' and it will move." The house is the self, divided by doubt, fear, desire, and memory. To make peace within is to end the war of opposites. The two, inner and outer, spirit and body, heaven and earth, reconcile into one harmony. When that unity is achieved, miracles become natural. The mountain, symbol of resistance, inertia, impossibility, moves effortlessly. The world bends to those who no longer struggle against it. Peace within is power without. The gospel's secret has always been this: divinity is coherence, not conquest. From the first saying to the last, the path of Thomas moves in a spiral. From ignorance to seeking, from seeking to disturbance, from disturbance to astonishment, and from astonishment to rest. You have walked the same path, listening now. You have heard the call to seek, the fire to question, the challenge to disrobe, the courage to face paradox, the tenderness to see light in small things, and the silence that swallows all opposites. The journey ends not with a doctrine, but with a state, luminous, calm, awake. The hidden has been made plain, not through argument, but through direct seeing. Every teaching was a step toward the same discovery. The living one dwells here in the seeing itself. Closing cadence. Now the lamp rests upon its stand. The seeker becomes the light he sought. There is no more inside or outside, no before or after, only this living stillness. The voice of Jesus fades, but not into absence. It becomes the breath, the pulse, the radiance that speaks without words. The sayings were never his alone. They are the pattern of life itself. The way truth hides and reveals, burns and rests, moves and reposes. Let the listener fall quiet now. The work is complete. The veil has lifted. The hidden has become plain, and with that, our quiet journey through these hidden sayings comes to a close. Thank you for listening, for reflecting, and for walking this ancient path with us. From all of us here at the Infinite Archive, may the light within you continue to reveal what has always been near. Rest well, and we'll meet again in the next journey, the end.